How's it going? And welcome back to the Caffeinated Coordinators podcast. I am your co-host, Coach Scott Pellegrin, and joining me for episode 3, he's got 20 perfect plays on a color-coded call sheet. The only thing he's missing is the All-Star Special. From the other side of the ball, Coach G, Tyler Gaspard.
How's it going, guys? Doing great this Friday morning, sipping on some river roast cafe from the Big River. So, got a nice little brew this morning.
And our producer, the freshman football jack of all trades, the man, the godfather of EATV, Coach Eric Brownfield.
Thank you. I'm drinking whatever Ms. Wheat put in this coffee pot yesterday afternoon.
I was going to say, no way she's here.
No, but very thankful. She sets that up almost every single day. She's got that set up ready to go. So, hey, that's big. That's big. All I do is press a button.
Also, shout out to Coach Brownfield for the new merch, man.
We got merch.
We got merch now.
So. Get your Caffeinated Coordinators mugs anywhere personalized merchandise is sold, as long as you have the access to the logo.
Which you could screen grab off the intro to the podcast.
You can. That takes a lot of effort, but hey, if you want to support us, go the extra mile.
Absolutely.
So, Coach G, what is our topic for today?
So our topic is going to be more in the lines of film study and play calling sheet, how you're building that throughout the week. What are the responsibilities of your assistant coaches throughout the week as far as tagging goes. But before we do that, Coach Pell, state championship last weekend. Just want to shout out all the state champs from Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Tough 15-week season. They got through it, went through the gauntlet, and now they're in the off season.
They are finally.
Welcome aboard.
Yes. Welcome to the club. Y'all are a little happier than everybody else in the state is, because those teams actually cashed in and won a title, and man, more power to them. Those were some good games. The Saturday slate was really awesome. I actually went with Coach Ward, our O-line coach. We watched, there were 8 games. We probably watched 4 of them in full. There were some other activities going on out there in New Orleans. Shout out New Orleans. But no, the Saturday slate, man, St. Thomas More looked really impressive. Calvary Baptist and St. Charles Catholic played a great game. And then the Division I non-select with Rustin and Zachary was a barn burner, and they were just dudes all over the yard. So that was a great game to watch, and super competitive. And you saw hustle, you saw guys getting to the ball, you saw guys executing, you saw guys locked in on the sideline. It was just a clinic to end all clinics of what you would want your football teams to be. So that was pretty awesome. So, kind of switching back gears here, what kind of feedback y'all got from last week, our first video episode?
I got all love for the video.
All
love. Everybody was like, man, it was so much easier to watch. It's kind of tough. Some people, all they do is watch podcasts on YouTube. So they're used to video. I'm a Apple Podcast guy. I like to listen to it in my truck on the way. But it's nothing to just plug in YouTube and listen to it on the ride either. But the video helped us out. And the another thing is, I think it's almost time for a guest host.
I think so, man. Some of the feedback I got, which I'm sure everyone else did too, it's, man, y'all got to have me on. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be part of the Caffeinated Coordinators. And hey, people, we hear you, and we're ready to spread the love. Bring a topic, bring a cup of coffee, and, man, we could probably set something up. One person I want to shout out, I don't know his real name because I follow him on Twitter, but he coaches at Thibodeau High School. Their quarterback's coach, his Twitter handle is D Will. So, and he sent me a DM the other day. I don't know him personally. I just know him from shaking his hand, probably at coaching stuff, but really don't have a relationship with him. But he sent me a DM and said, man, that podcast is good, blank. And I was like, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. So shout out to D Will, man. We don't really know each other, but we could always share ideas and chop it up anytime you want. Brownfield, what you got?
I was surprised. I've been waiting for somebody to comment on the Cowboys poster behind you.
Yeah, I know. That's very ironic.
Let me get that up here. Yeah, there it is right there.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anything yet, so I guess I'm doing that myself now. But I've been waiting on that and haven't heard a word. So now I'm just opening myself up to it as a Cowboys fan, a lifelong Cowboys fan. I'm used to it, so bring it on. Let's go. Throw it out there.
I think you might be on the list.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, it's funny we talk about NFL real quick. That's a preview of the end of this episode, so stay tuned.
So, before we get into the nitty gritty, Pel, do you have a favorite coaching memory or playing memory going back through your years? I know you're a little older than me, so you got more years experience in the coaching field.
Okay, so favorite memory, and we were talking about the episode, and you actually gave me an idea for this segment. A story I always tell you, and I forget I tell you, so I always tell you again. But this one, and I have a lot of cool memories, and I haven't been in a lot of huge games, but I've been, like, most of my coaching memories come from certain people and kids and coaches I've been around. So this one, it's about my boy, Nathaniel Long. South Lafourche High School. This is 2018. Yes, 2018. It was the year before I left there and went somewhere else. So Nate was a senior. He was a returning starter from the previous year. He played linebacker. And he started some games as a junior. Kind of had that first year starter, those typical mistakes you have of a first year starter. And he was a strong kid, but really wouldn't rack up a bunch of numbers in the weight room. Really wasn't fast, but he had a really good build. So anyway, started a couple games junior year. Man, when he hit the off season, he was just an animal. I mean, lifting weights, his body changed, his attitude it was already great, but it got better. And he came into that next season like a crazed animal. He was ready to play linebacker, and we was running a 3-3 at the time, so he was a off the ball C-gap linebacker. And we're a 4A school, but our numbers were dipping a little bit as far as on the football team. So he was having a great season, and he told me before the season, he said, "Coach, man, I set a personal goal for myself. I'm all about the team, but I set a personal goal. I want to make all district, first team all district." I said, "Well, that's great, man. That's a great to have set goals for yourself, and you do it as long as you do your job within the defense. I'm sure you'll get all the stats you need to accumulate to get that honor, And fast forward to about week, I don't know, 7 or 8, we're in the thick of district, and we're down. We only played with 3 defensive linemen because it's 3-3, but we are down defensive line, and we didn't have a ton of depth like we have over here at our school. And being a fit kid, great weight room guy, he was about 5'11", We was in the coach's office. We made a decision. It's like, man, Nate's got to come down. And I was like, man, that's going to kill him. Knowing the conversation we had about his goals. So I go up to him in the locker room, go to deliver the bad news. It really wasn't bad news. It wasn't taking him off the field, but
right.
He finally got good at something, and he was feeling confident. That's why he was playing well. And so I go up to Nate, and I say, man, so-and-so's hurt. So-and-so's hurt. And we got this other guy who could fill your spot at linebacker. And I could see his face drop. I said, "You're going to have to play defensive line this week." He's like, man. He's like, Coach, I really want to make all district at linebacker. I said, I understand that, and I understand you're disappointed. That's okay. It's okay to be disappointed. But it really, the team needs this right now, and that could be cliche when you tell it to be a cop-out, but I told him, it was point blank, that was the truth. I said, the team needs somebody right now to step up in that role, and of the guys who are already playing, you're that guy that fits the description to move down. And he kind of looked down for a second. He looked up at me. He said, "Coach, for the team, no problem." No problem. I was like, okay, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. I was ready to give him a whole pep talk, but no, he said, "For the team, no problem." Fast forward, a couple weeks later, gets his linebacker spot back because we got healthy again. All district meeting comes around. I'm getting chills telling the story. All district meeting comes around. In that district, we go for a defensive flex, kind of like a catch-all.
Mm-hmm.
We told him that story I just told you. all the coaches were like, yeah, that's a defensive flex player. Started 10 games, 2 different positions, had some decent stats, did it for the team. Boom.
That's awesome.
First team all district flex
I
player.
just got chills too.
And then on top of that, we was voting for our team awards in the coach's office, and we didn't have a good season. But one of our old heads, Tommy Boudreaux, I don't know if he listens. I hope so because I love him. Said if that's not most valuable player, after he said the phrase for the team, he said, I don't know what is. Boom, team MVP as well. So
That's awesome,
man, big ups to Nate Long. He's got a kid now. I follow him on Facebook. Great dude. Follows us on TikTok. So he might actually hear this. So Nate Long, you the man, bro. Love you.
Mine, that man, I don't know how I can come after that one, but mine's very short. It's not really necessarily like a playing or a coaching. We never got to tell our backstories, but I played at Carricker High, the Golden Bears, shout out, the Crow. And every Friday night, a home game, when we're coming out of the weight room onto the field, we go through the goalpost. They got the big banner up that you run through. But we had this chainsaw. Now, it didn't have a chain, okay? It didn't have the actual chain. But we'd all get in our huddle, and we'd crank the chainsaw, and the chainsaw would be rolling as we break through the banner and we go. And it's one of those you have to be there moments, but just for, like, that's one of my most, like my greatest memories through high school is those 4 years of going with that chainsaw, running out on the field. In the background, you got, shout out Big Boy. Big Boy got the train horn blowing. So it's just a lot of noise, and the chainsaw's pumping up the team. And just, that's one of my greatest memories as a player, just running out on the field with that chainsaw. Coach?
All right, let's see. For me, it's actually I was 9 years old, and I would go with my dad to every game at Mansfield High School, home and away. We went to all 15 games that year. It was a great year to go to all 15, and we lost one game in double overtime to Houghton on a completely bogus offensive pass interference call on Chris Hill, who ended up being a 3-year starter at LSU. And so other than that, we were 13-1. We beat Jamie Howard and St. Thomas More in the semifinals at Cajun Field. We beat Coach Baggs and Independence in Independence. Like, we had our whole playoff. It seems like we played all road games. And so we got to see Independence in the quarterfinals. We saw St. Thomas More in the semifinals. And then we played A-Meet in the finals. And this was A-Meet when they were rolling, like Al Head and all these guys. Like, they were monsters. And we were down 29-6 at halftime. And they never threw a pass, and they just ran right over us. And they were stopping everything we had success with all year. And as a 9-year-old, I was done. I wanted to go back to the hotel. And I was just completely pissed off. And we come back in the second half. Our defensive coordinator actually wore a tuxedo to the game. It was a bet that he had with his players. If we made it to the Dome, I'm going to wear a white tux with, green. And he did. And he came out in the second half in like a gray practice shirt and those old 80s practice shorts, and we won 38-29.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We just blitzed every single play. They got like 20 yards in the second half, and we scored every time we touched the ball. And won a state championship. Still the biggest comeback, I think, in Superdome history, in Superdome Classic history. So anytime we're down or anybody's down and watching a game, I never give up, because at 9 years old, I got that lesson that, hey, it can always happen. Never give up.
And that must be a North Louisiana thing, because I seen a huge comeback. It was Haynesville that made the comeback. I don't know if it was on Sterlington, Logansport. This was in 2018 in the Dome, but it was double digits, 20 points or more, and it was just, another old head named Tommy I worked with, Tommy Gisclair, looked at me in the Dome that day and said, they're going to tell that story the rest of their life. And they're going to remember the day they faced adversity and they came back. I'm getting chills again. And came back and won the title from impossible odds behind. But 14-0 actually shares that photo of the white tuxedo every year before the Prep Classic, and forever known as the Tuxedo Game.
And I lived that. I lived that. I can still remember being in those stands. I'll never forget that. And one more thing to add to that, I think North Louisiana teams, I think there's something a little more special about going to the Dome. New Orleans is sort of a foreign concept to most of us who grew up there, and it's something really, really special to go to New Orleans. That was my first time ever being there, and I didn't go back for another 7 or 8 years. So I do think there's something a little extra in it for those teams, and I think they get a little extra juice out of that.
I love it. I love it. So, man, let's jump right in.
Let's go.
It's game plan week. It's film week. Some people are probably like, how are these guys still motivated? They went through a long season. They're still talking about football because we love it. That's why we're doing
our
it.
life.
We love it. And this is actually the best time to talk about film and game planning, in my opinion, because this is when I personally do kind of all my unwinding from the season. I'm like, all my ideas of stuff I need to fix or tweak or change, I try to do it before the end of the calendar year while it's still fresh. And then I might just, I might make a list of what I need to change, and then I'll start tackling it after I take a little break. But I definitely have my list of things. It's like, I need to change that. I need to tweak that. That name needs to be different, But this is actually the perfect time, in my opinion, to talk about it. So
Awesome. So first thing we kind of get to is like how to watch film, like how to watch it. With that, I think there's modes. I think there's different types of modes you have to get in to watch film. Now, all of them kind of tie in together, but I broke it down into 5 different modes. I think there's fan mode, there's tagging mode, there's situational mode, there's player identification mode, and then there's the watch with players mode. The fan mode, you're going to watch the entire game. You're just going to see the flow of the game. You're not really closely focusing on like power, tackle pulled, guard pulled, all of this. They're crashing a 2 or crashing a 5. It's more of, man, like that was a good all-around play, or that was a all-around good defensive stop or whatever. That's I think a lot of, and I speak for myself, like first, second year coach, I caught myself in fan mode a lot. I had to really train myself how to watch film and get into these other 4 modes. And the second mode is tagging mode. That goes into specific for your responsibility. Like, what is your responsibility for tagging? And that's what you focus on when you're watching for the tagging. I'm just watching that specific thing. Situational, what's being worked on at practice. We talked about practice plan last week. So Monday is our gotchas, our coming out and everything. Okay, so what does the defense, I'm offense coordinator, what does the defense do when they have the offense pinned back? When do I see them as the most vulnerable for the gotcha play? Tuesday's third downs. So Monday night, I will watch all the third down cut-ups and see, okay, this is what they like majority of the time on third down. So I'm going to work these things at practice on Tuesday. Player identification, this is where you strictly look for their dude and the plug-in guy or the one they're trying to hide. Who's their dude, who's the guy they're trying to hide. And then the watch with the players kind of ties it all together. You're going to give a background of the players. You're going to say, hey, look, on third down, they like to be in this. It's more of what do they do? When I'm watching with the players, it's what do they do? I'm not trying to sit down and let them watch an hour and a half movie because the attention span's not that long. So we're going to get down. We're going to say, hey, look, this is what they do. This is who they are. Here's a couple of clips. Okay, let's focus back on us now.
So I want to talk about some of the stuff. That first thing you said, actually, about being in fan mode when you were kind of new at coaching.
Right.
Did you find, and this isn't really related to film, but it's kind of in the same vein, when you first started coaching, like on game night, did you find yourself following the ball more so than the responsibility you were supposed to look for during the game? Or being a quarterback's coach, were you allowed to just follow the ball?
So my situation is a little, not too much different, but a little different. my first job was at DeRitter. Shout out, some of them watch the show.
Mighty Dragons.
Yeah, but I got to get in right out of college, and I was the quarterbacks coach, helped out with the receivers as well. But I was also the signaler. I was the signal caller. So my mind was always focused on what, like, I'm trying to get in the mind of our offensive coordinator at the time. So that way I can start anticipating what's coming next. With that, I was watching the quarterback a lot, but I never got a chance to kind of just sit down and say, all right, defense is doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm signaling while I got to focus on who's watching me.
You were busy. Yeah,
yes.
You were busy.
So at that point, no, I didn't get to really watch what the defense was doing other than what I saw on film.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, we had a really good offense coordinator. Shout out Coach Beard. But he kind of handled all of that along with Coach Porm, the head coach, would help out. And I would just solely do the signaling and making sure everybody was focused in on me.
So when so 12 years in right now, my first 2 years, I didn't have any tagging responsibilities. I was a college student, CECP, and Huddle was still kind of in its infancy. So Kyle and Chris would handle most of the breakdowns and tagging themselves. And then when I graduated college and started working for Skeins at South Lafourche, we all had responsibilities. Somebody was down in distance, somebody was blitzes, somebody was, everything you could think of tagging, we tagged it. Because he's information overload. He'd rather have all of it at his disposal and not use some of it versus needing it and then having to go back in the middle of the week and try to search for it. So we kind of just knocked it all out, got it out the way. That way the coordinators could use what they needed. So I was down in distance, and because tagging down in distance, and some people probably disagree with this, man, it is a pain in the butt to tag down in distance because Huddle has that little option where if you hit enter, it'll fill in. But sometimes it doesn't always do it.
Sometimes it's not correct.
And sometimes it's not accurate. And sometimes, so it could be a bit of a tedious task.
There goes the Huddle sponsorship there.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Sorry, Huddle. And it's just, it's actually, it's going to help them sell more assist subscriptions.
Yeah.
But it could be a little tedious of a task, so I never got into the watch it as a fan mode when I was watching tape because I was like, man, I gotta get this done. I was in
you were in tagging mode.
I was in young boy mode too. Like I don't want to screw this up.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw what happened in the game. Let me just get this tagging done. So I've always kind of been in tagging mode, and I think that shaped me now because I never get into fan mode, and I probably should because a lot of coaches do it, and they say they just want to watch it just normal, hit play, let it go, and watch the game as it just transpires. And I've never actually got into that mode, and I've tried, and it just, for me, I'm like, I'm wasting time. I need to get this tagging done so I can break this stuff down because I'm just, as part of my OCD, I need to focus. So I immediately go into tagging mode.
What about when you're watching the Fighting Tigers or the Mighty Saints?
It depends. So if I'm watching a game live, I tend to, because of I sit up top because, I'm poor. But I tend to, I could see more things kind of on the fly, like scheme thing, like, oh, they're doing this, or they just ran power, because I'm kind of eye in the sky, so it's easier to see the play develop. But I try when I'm watching like my favorite teams as a fan, I try not to break it down because it would just, that's work mode. That's a whole different ball of wax. But
folks, notice we didn't say anything about the Dallas Cowboys there.
Thank God. But
I would like to interject and say you guys are really making me feel old because when I was a young coach a long time ago, my job on Saturday morning was to go trade VHS tapes.
Meet them halfway.
Yes, I met at the Butte LaRose little rest stop there on I-10. Used to meet a lot of Lafayette coaches there. You can actually see they're like a community. You'd be 7 or 8, trucks sitting there waiting to exchange. So it's amazing how much things have progressed. Huddle is an amazing thing, and if you don't believe that, go try to trade film at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's brutal.
On a probably Saturday morning too, right after a game.
Yeah.
But like my OCD, I need some focus. So I get all my tagging done, and I could tag on Thursday, next week's opponent, even though we didn't play this week's opponent on Friday yet. Because to me, tagging mode is I'm not even concerned. I'm just identifying stuff.
Right, you're just
that could be, somebody that could be a team from the backwoods of Cedar Rapids. I don't care who's playing. I'm just tagging what I see.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'm always in tagging mode, and then I run my reports, and I have all this specifics. I actually have my stuff in front of me. So it's, I didn't plan to have it in front of me. I just it ended up being in my bag.
Yeah.
But I go tagging mode, and then I look at their favorite stuff. I draw up our defense, our favorite fronts that I feel like we're best at, to what is going to align best to their favorite formations and plays. And then from there, I break the game plan down into, okay, so if I line up like this or like this, how can I attack from there? What coverages can I run? Because on defense, depending on what the other team runs, you don't have, you got some variety, but you only got so much variety because you got to teach it to the kids, right? And even if it's stuff you already do, if you dabble in an overfront, underfront, and some odd, let's say that's what you do, you can't teach 3 fronts to 10 formations week to week. You know what I'm saying? Even if you got those hard and fast rules for your formations, they're still offenses. They watch film too. They're going to throw that curveball. So I tend to get simpler, and I don't mind admitting this. I'm simple to a fault. So I tend to get simpler, and I want to line up like this and like this. From there, I could run these coverages out of it, and I could attack with this and this type of pressures, blitzes, stunts. So I try to make it as simple as possible. But as far as actually watching the film, the cool thing about Huddle is I could filter the data.
Yes.
So you talk about watching it with the players. I think I mentioned this in episode 1. If it's our base downs day, I'll take my script that I made for practice, the scout cards I want to run, and I'll filter those plays, and that's what we'll watch. Might be 10 plays, run, pass, et cetera, But when I watch the game plan, I'm mostly looking at formations because as a defensive coach, I feel like if you try to formation me to death, that's what's going to confuse the kids the most. So that's what I focus on getting right, because I feel like the kids know how to run our plays. Like I feel confident enough in our coaches and the way we teach things that, if I call an A-gap blitz, a 5-man A-gap blitz, that doesn't take a ton of time to perfect. Like we're kind of good at that before we in fall camp.
Right.
So as long as we hit a couple reps of that in practice, I could pull that out of my butt anytime during the game, and be successful at it. So I focus more on the alignment part. And I'm kind of getting in the weeds. I'm sorry. But so I guess to answer your question, I'm in tagging mode. I'm in filter the plays mode. And when I watch it with players, again, the attention spans, I try to keep it to what's to be on the script for that day.
Yeah.
Give them the visual, and then we go out there and we line up and we practice. And we polish it up from there. And as far as tagging goes, every coach has responsibilities. The first 2 games have to be fully tagged. We trade 2 games on Wednesday or Thursday. First 2 games have to be fully tagged before we show up Saturday. Mm-hmm. And then when we get the trade film from the night before, we sit down before we do anything else, tag that. And then 2 coaches will start drawing cards. 2 coaches will start working on the actual game plan, the alignments, the tricks, the coverages, and so on and so on. And that's kind of how we didn't get into going back to last week's work week. That's how I find we're more efficient on Saturdays because of the way we divide up the work.
Yeah.
But
And then my responsibilities as far as assistant coaches goes, I try to give everybody the responsibility that's going to help their position the best. So like offensive line, you're going to do the fronts and stunts of the defensive line. See what they're doing. Are they moving a lot? Are they staying stationary? Running backs, blitzes. For the majority of the time, the running back is the blitz pickup as far as a 6-man protection, 7-man protection. Wide receiver, coverages. No, how much are they playing man? How much are they in quarters, halves, cloud? And then if you're fortunate enough, like we had a tight end fullbacks coach, short yardage goal line situations. Telling what are they in? Or do they switch their personnel into something different? Do they do that based off of the offense? And then the quarterbacks, motion adjustments, tempo adjustments, and then printing, creating all the reports. I mean, I was also the quarterbacks coach, so I tried to give myself a little bit more responsibilities than everybody else. And the biggest ones I use on the reports wise are just third down versus blitz, blitzes in general, and then coverages versus the down. Is there certain things that are tendencies that they have?
So I kind of want to stay on this topic because I feel like there's several types of coaches who do it different ways. Some coaches rather tag it all themselves because they know the way they want it, and I don't know why that is. Maybe they don't have experienced enough assistants to where they could teach them the way they want it done. But one thing I've always tried to do, regardless of the assistant's experience level, is if I could give them something that helps their position, like you said, great.
Yeah.
But if it's just we're in get it done mode, then I'll try to teach them and try to, because here's the thing, you learn by doing. You know, you got to learn by doing. And me and Coach Hawkins from South Terrebonne, by way of South Lafourche, love you, Bill. Wild Bill Hawkins, by the way. He'll appreciate that. But we went visit Coach Ron Roberts at Southeastern in 2016. He was Bill's coach at Delta State, Division II Delta State. They went to a national championship, won a couple conference championships there. Roberts is actually at Auburn now, I think.
Yeah, DC at Auburn.
Yeah. So, you know, Coach Roberts moved up the ranks, but such a smart coach. Such a smart coach. Well, they let us take home. It was a game plan / tagging manual.
Yeah.
Like and I know the camera can't see this, but I have it inspired me to do my own tagging manual. What do I want to call formations? That way you could make your defensive structure, in a sense of your coach's responsibilities, more outlined. I'm a big believer in putting things on paper as far as this is Gaspard's responsibility, this is Brownfield's responsibility, and if you need help, refer to this.
Right.
And I mean, it's got everything in here. It's what to call the plays, it's what reports to print, it's what to call formations, it's what to call motions. I mean, it is all. It's like a binder of this is how you tag film for me, and there's plenty of ways to do it, but this is my way to tag film. And most coaches, I say most, in fact, all coaches that have worked under me on the defensive side have really taken to it. Like it. Sometimes I thought when I first did it, I thought it might be met with a little, because everybody knows like 2x2, 10 personnel. You know, some coaches call it doubles, some coaches call it doubles open, some call it dubs, whatever. There's 85 different names for it, but it doesn't matter what you call it. It's just something that works for me because ultimately I'm the one responsible to make the game plan. So
Right.
all right, we're going to call it whatever. So that's what we call it. And it was never met. Keegan Polkey, Coach DBs at South Lafourche when I was defensive coordinator for a couple of years, and he tagged our formations, and eventually the passing plays because he followed the book. And he every week he'd sit down on his computer on Saturday. He'd out of his book bag he would pull out the manual. If he got stuck, I see him flipping the page. But man, he was so quick at it. Coach Martin, D-line coach here, took it, and if he had a question, because some teams were trying to formation us to death, me and him would talk about it. And but the cool thing is we talked about it in this language.
Right.
Like we tried to keep a universal language on defense, and that was so big in speaking the same language, especially and on game night. Javen Johnson, who's at our middle school, was our spotter, our eye in the sky on defense, and even he would start speaking in this language a little bit because he would see on huddle because he doesn't work here every day, so I never gave him the tagging manual. But
Right.
he would see on Huddle what we called it, and he would try to assimilate to use that language. And man, you can get all of your coaches and the cliches on the same page, but literally on the same page.
Yeah.
And that was big. Just that split second of communication that you don't have to wonder what he meant. If you add up all those split seconds, how much time do you save, and how much more efficient are you in the heat of battle? You know, or in your work week when you're trying to be as efficient as possible and not stay at the office till 8 o'clock at night. You know,
Right.
so you save time by doing stuff like that. And man, you're organized and efficient. And I'm not blowing my own horn by saying that. I'm just saying that I learned that from Ron Roberts at Southeastern, and I was like, man, that's something you could take to high school. Because sometimes you go to clinics or you go talk to college staffs, and it's like, I don't know if that would translate to our game or to our staff. But that worked like a charm for me.
No, and that's like, I mean, when my quarterback coach and offense coordinator at McNeese, I got a bunch of his stuff from, just I asked and he sent it over, and it was basically the same exact thing. Like, no, it was probably like 100 pages because it was like
Right.
every single little adjustment. And at that level, you need that.
And when you got a couple of GAs
Yeah.
sifting through it, they ain't got to teach math all day.
But no, I mean, it was to the T. Like, if they're in this, that's this formation. If this guy blitzes from this depth, it's this. If it's this, like it's unbelievable. Like how much time and preparation it takes to be as like successful as you want to be. Because I think like what you said, being on the same page, like coaching staff, y'all are speaking the same language. If the kids hear you speaking the language, then they're going to start speaking the language.
That's right.
So I have a lot of respect for what you do with that.
I appreciate the compliment, man.
So very quickly, talk to me about your play sheet.
Ooh, the play sheet. So
I say quickly. I know that's probably something we probably shouldn't rush too much. But
no, we're good. The bell's not creeping upon us too bad, but it is. So my play sheet, I've gone through what feels like a different iteration of a play sheet every year. I've been a coordinator.
too.
I mean, I've been coordinating defense 6 or 7 years now, and I've gone through 2 different ones in a season. I've changed it mid-season because you're trying to experiment with what's going to work, what you could actually look at, because sometimes I find myself not looking at it, and I'm thinking, why did I make this damn thing? And I'm not even looking at it. So I always tweak it because I tweak it to try to make it work. So this season, I feel like I've really found a way to make it work for me, and I have 2 sides. There's a left side and a right side because I fold it in half so it fits in my back pocket.
We're all looking at that right now. So.
Oh, outstanding. So on the left side, where I have my name and the logos and the date of the game and all that, that is just the blanket tendencies and favorites. They get in 11 personnel such and such percent of the time. They get in 12 personnel this percent of the time. And I have their 2 favorite formations, so let's just take 11 personnel. 11 personnel, let's say, 38% of the time, because I have a specific one. The one y'all are looking at is generic. So for the one I'm looking at, 11 personnel, 38% of the time, I have pro twins and trip snub, 2 favorite formations out of that personnel grouping. And then I have the 2 play calls I would call if I saw 11 personnel. And then I have, I've said before, our coverages are color-coded. So I color-code whatever pressure I want. It might just be, hey, this is going to be orange pressure, black pressure. Because further down, I have all the pressures I could run out of that
Right.
coverage. And if I want a specific one, I'll list it there too. And then just so on down the line for their favorite personnel groupings. And then on the bottom half of the left side, that's just a menu. Out of black, I could run these pressures. Out of purple, I could run these. Out of blue, I could run these. And that's just my blitz menu. That way it reminds me of all the things we can do, even if it's not specifically in the game plan. I want to attack 11 personnel with a certain pressure. I still have it.
Right.
And I make it a point to be good at as many as possible. That way it'll make adjustments easier, because if at halftime it's like, ooh, that C-gap blitz would work here. We didn't really work it all week, but we've been working it all season. And then that makes that recall a little easier. That way you're not drawing stuff in the dirt. You're trying to recall the stuff they already have done a lot.
Right.
And then at the bottom, this is big because how do you differentiate personnels? We played a team this year that had a tight end / H-back, and he played all of it. He never came off the field. And another team, their dude was a tight end as well, and never came off the field. Would play actual split receiver too. So there was no tendency for them of, well, when this guy comes on the field, they're switching personnel groupings. And that's when you have to go to your menu. Mm-hmm. That's when it's, okay, you getting a safe call, or you try to cheat the formation, hold the call to the last second, which is a dangerous game to play. But personnel, though, if you could identify a number of, well, when 85 comes in, 21 personnel, boom, and I go to that section.
Right.
And then on the right-hand side of the call sheet is the down and distance breakdown. So, again, it's broken up by down and distance. It's a little less specific, but it's got, 11, 12, 10 personnel. And then and on the down and distance side, I tend to put more safe play calls.
Right.
Because that might be a situation where are they out on the field, or, you don't know what they're going to come out in, because that dude, how you tell about identifying their dude, mm-hmm. their dude could play anywhere. So I'm not going to know the personnel right away. So I might tend to go with a safer play call in those situations. Or I might, let's say it's third and extra long, no matter what their tendency is on the third and extra long side, I'm going to put safer calls, because I know no matter what they come out in, I'm probably going to go something safe.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not a perfect science. It's not a perfect system. I know I'm not doing a great job of explaining that, but again, this is very specific to me. And you got to find something that works for you. But I found that tendency / menu style is best. But you got to be familiar with it, because you got to be able to know I could go to this section if I need a play call. And this season, I was able to do that on the down and distance side. Was, all right, it's 3rd and 10. What do I like on 3rd and 10? Because you have some options. And at that point, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what they come out in, but there's some downs in my brain, depending on how the game's going or what I've watched on film. I don't think it does matter what they come out in, because I have a couple of play calls for that situation, not necessarily that formation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why you hear a lot of coaches say don't get stuck in your play sheet, because at the same time, like, you got to fill out the game. And I've never been a defensive coordinator, but like, you might get a feel like, hey, they're normally in 10 personnel on 3rd and 10, but the entire game up to that point, they were a lot of 11 and 20 or something like that. So it's like, hey, are they really going to jump into 10 personnel for the first time in this situation?
And if I could say something real quick, we talked about practicing third down situations. Well, I might throw a curveball, and they never lined up in their heavy formation on 3rd down, but we might look at it one time, and I'll line up my safe call against it.
Yeah.
That way we know how to play the safe call versus that formation. And again, you might look at it once or twice, but you just be able to recall, because they might try to throw you the curveball on 3rd and long. So that's why you practice down and distance.
Like you said, the other team watches film too.
They do.
So, no, man, mine, I stole it. I think a lot of coaches steal things, and that's how you can create your own. I stole mine from my offensive coordinator, Coach Hofer, kind of put it into a little more simpler terms. Mine's actually, you can fold in half as well. Mine's just a vertical fold. The left side it's split up between runs, miscellaneous, and pass. That is everything we work the entire week, including mama. We've been talking about going back to mama. Even if, like,
we're gonna put that on a T-shirt one day, by the way.
But and on that left side, it's separated into like a white section and a gray section. The white section is like, let's say, I'm gonna just speak on runs. Any run to the left will be in the white section. Any run to the right will be in the gray section, and they're gonna be right across from each other. Same thing, miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is my play action rollouts and my gotcha plays. Mm-hmm. And then the pass plays, obviously, any drop back pass that we worked that week. Now, on that side, it's like I said, it's everything we worked, including some things that we probably didn't touch on a lot, but I still know I'm still confident in that we can do. when you get to the right side's the same format as far as left and right goes, but it's more of my situational things. Third and shorts, third and longs. The very top is the top 7. I'm not a fan of scripting the first few plays, so I put it as the top 7 instead. It's my top 7. This is either drive starters. It can be, what has worked really well this week. What are the kids confident in?
It's more menu style than being in a certain order.
Yeah, it's just all right. Like,
I want the patty melt or the all-star.
Ooh, where are we talking?
Go, I'm sorry. Go on. I keep cutting you
No,
off.
no. Like I like me some Waffle House. But the top right is that top 7, and if the kids aren't confident in it, it's not going in my top 7. No matter how I feel about it, the top 7, we both have to be on the same page with it. That's between drives. I'm like, man, forgot about that one. Like, looking at it, all right, I need to see this one this drive. Then we get into, like I said, the situations, third downs. The ones, again, what am I confident in? What are the kids confident in? Okay, 3rd and 10, it might be only 2 plays on there, but those 2 plays looked really good this week. The kids are confident in it, so I'm confident in calling that in that situation. Get down to the goal line, you got your 2-point play at the bottom at the end right there. So, mine, like you said, this is my first year being an offense coordinator, but I've created one every year just to see, okay, I like how he did that. Let me see if I can make it mine. I like how he did his. Let me see if I can make it mine. And I kept working through it. And this one I actually really did like because I don't look at it much, but I know, like you said, I know where to go when I need it. Especially like at halftime, it's like I'm not really going to look at the situational stuff at halftime. I'm going to look at my whole left side. That way I can say, okay, got to get back to that one right there. So yeah, man, mine. I like the folding aspect. Makes it smaller. It's not as bulky.
And I get tunnel vision calling plays. So talk about halftime. I'll look at it and what did I not use that I really wanted to use this week?
Yes.
Take the Sharpie. All right, second half, I got to use that. I got to use that. I got to use that because we thought as a defensive staff that was going to work, and I didn't call it yet, and that's my fault. I need to call that because that's something that could help us. And
that's the beauty about, like we talked about earlier, coaches being on the same page, because like if they know what you're thinking, they could come on the mic and be like, "Hey, coach, don't forget, like this looked really good this week," like, and you're like, "Oh, you're right," and then like you working together using the same language, and now you can make the kids successful.
And right before we wind down, I want to talk about something you said about even as an assistant when it wasn't your job to call plays, how you would make a call sheet anyway. And I just want to point out young coaches out there, guys who are aspiring to be coordinators and head coaches, it's okay to develop your own stuff because you need to, the old saying, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly thinking like that, to me, that means you're thinking on a different level. You're thinking on that higher level of thinking like, well, what if it was me? How would I do it? That's not saying I would do it. You might do it a little different, but that's not saying you're going against what your superior, your coordinator, head coach is doing. But it's just, to me, I think of that as self-development.
Right.
Well, if I had to call it, well, how would I divvy it up, or how would I look at it, or would I do that differently? Would I? And again, I don't think that's a lack of loyalty. I think it's some self-development. Now, if you start being a turd and challenging the people above you in a non-respectful way, that's different. But I'm talking about just doing that little bit of homework on the side to keep yourself stimulated to, well, if I get a chance of getting that role one day here or somewhere else, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, and I just love the organization. I could talk about organization all day long.
Yeah.
To me, that's my strong suit. That's your strong suit. I love it. And that's a big part of the battle.
To get back, like what you just said, like shout out. We talked about Coach Rollins before, but shout like his saying was, "Oh, you're either getting better or you're getting by." Like I think that's not just to the players; that's to coaches as well. Like, how are you getting better as a coach? If you're not getting better, you're just getting by, and you're moving on day to day, which means you're actually getting worse.
Absolutely.
So there's always time to grow. There's always room for growth.
All right, Coach. Here we go.
Here we go.
Take us home. Can I lead off?
Go ahead, man.
I'm finally gonna create my list. I'm finally gonna have my list talking about something that's not high school related. And we talk about the Cowboys flag in the background. Coach Brown feels a lifelong Cowboys fan, like most people from North Louisiana. I grew up south of I-10, actually south of Highway 90, and we pull for the Saints. That's our favorite team. You know, and
Let's get on with it. Come on, let's go.
my Saints are disappointing me right now, man. They are, and we're bouncing around that 500 mark, and I thought DA was a great hire. Not for the continuity, but just because he was a great defensive coach, and he was going to keep calling defense. And as long as you have a strong defense, we're fine. But, man, I think the DA experiment is not going great, and I'm not calling for anybody's job or positions. I think that's kind of messed up to do. But I do think Mrs. Benson will have to make some tough decisions in the offseason. So who's going on the list this week? Mrs. Benson, I love you. You're great for our team. You're great for our city. However, if you don't seriously look at the personnel of this team, coaches, players, top to bottom, you will be on the list.
Hey. So mine is not like targeted at anybody, you know. Like I've briefly said before, I've played college ball. So mine's gonna be the high school seniors making the right decision. You know, if we have anybody listening, look, I've experienced it. I know a lot of people that have. Don't look at the level of the college. Look at the opportunity. I think a lot of kids these days see D1 mentality, D1, FBS, FCS. Like, that's great, but, like, there's so many more opportunities out there that, like, I've said it before, there's a lot of colleges. There's a college for everybody. There's a spot for everybody that wants to play football. Like, if you really want to play and you're going to work your tail off, there's a spot for you. And I think a lot of kids get lost in the levels. So it's not a shot at anybody. Like, it's just more of I'm taking this time to, like, try to help somebody, like, if they're in that tough decision right now. Yeah, you might have a preferred walk-on, or you might have the school down the road. Man, I want to walk on over there. And if that's your dream, by all means do that. But don't pass up the opportunity to either play for free or go to college for free, or have an opportunity where you can actually fit in educational-wise and playing-wise. You know, if you're not a Division I caliber player, like, you might sit 3-4 years before we even get anywhere. As far as, like, if you go D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO, you might get to play a little earlier in your career.
That's right.
So just the youngins out there, don't look at levels, look at opportunities.
There we go. All right up against the bell here. I'll be quick because I'm putting myself on the list here. And some of you out here,
No.
you may. I'm telling you, you know you're on the list too. And if you know, you know. That South Florida Alabama game. At the end of that game, I said, you know what? This is it for Saban. Like, he's kind of lost his touch. He's a little older. He's lost the magic. And I convinced myself, you know what? And then the Texas loss, and I was like, you know, this is they're back to earth. And I was wrong. I was very wrong. And I don't care who you are out there. I don't care what you think is going to happen. Alabama's going to win the national championship, and
No,
you know
they're
it.
not. No,
You know
they're
it.
not.
You all know
They
it.
are not.
You all know they're going to do it.
Nobody
Watch.
wants to see it,
They're
though.
not.
I'm telling you, nobody does. I
love
especially
Saban,
don't.
but
Saban's a great coach. He's the GOAT, you know. But I'm on the Saban is done list. I'm putting myself on there. I said it. I'm owning up to it. I was so wrong. He's going to go 10 more years.
He probably will.
You might outlast me.
And that's the bell. Give us the gong here.
There we go.
And that wraps up episode 3. Thank you for listening. Please join us next week for episode 4. And that's The Undertaker. We got to go to class. Happy coffee drinking. Enjoy your off season. And we are out.
See you next week.
There you go, guys.